Broadcasting live from California, get ready for an hour of pure, unapologetic conservative talk radio. Liberals beware, because this is the Wise Conservative Show.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Conservative Show. I'm your host, Connor Wise. Now, in this past week, we have seen a lot of stuff both abroad and in our own country. Of course, the whole Susan Rice scandal is popping up now. People are wondering whether she actually did intentionally surveil and leak info on Trump on orders from President Obama or not. So I have all the info on that. Of course, there was that recent possibly sarin attack in Syria that killed many people, and that was deadly. And this is part of the trouble that President Obama got us into, and that will be later in the episode. But actually starting off now in domestic issues, we can see that actually the surveillance and the investigation into the surveillance is kind of not going to a very good start. Lawmakers are now saying that the intelligence committee is actually not helping them out, or community, is not helping them out or giving them the information that they need. Of course, they're probing the surveillance of key officials in the Trump campaign. This has been an issue for a while now. They say that under the actual control and the stonewalling efforts of the previous president, they're all in Obama's pocket still. We see that. So they're not really helping the intelligence committees get down to the bottom of this actual issue. And of course, at this point, both Democrats and Republicans just want it to get over. Democrats want the intelligence community to say that Trump did collude with Russia. And of course, Republicans, we all know that there's no proof of that, but we need the backing of the actual agencies and the evidence that they have come up with to actually say that. Of course, both the House and the Senate are now actually investigating the matter. Last week, I brought you that story saying that the Senate was starting their own investigation into these allegations. And of course, those are also on allegations that the Obama administration spied on Trump and, of course, his associates for as long as a year preceding his actual inauguration. And former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice now has been implicated as at least one of the officials who sought redacted names from the surveillance transcripts. So now multiple lawmakers and investigators are actually talking to Fox News, CNN, and all these different media sources and saying that Susan Rice was the one who did this, that Susan Rice needs to answer for it. But they're also saying at the same time that the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA, all of them who are very key in these investigations, are not helping out whatsoever. A House Intelligence Committee source said, quote, "Our requests are simply not being answered. The agencies are not really helping at all, and there's truly a massive web for us to try and wade through." He said that the upper chamber is also having the same experience, saying, quote, "Our requests are simply not being answered." And quote, "Any information that will help find the wide extent on the unmasking and surveillance is purposely not being provided." An FBI spokesperson said that the Bureau is working in good faith. Quote, "The FBI will continue to work with the congressional oversight committees on their requests." And the CIA spokesperson said that the NSA was the lead agency on this matter and referred all questions to the NSA instead. Now, of course, we see all of these different allegations that have flown around in this entire matter, and we've never really had a name pop up until this past week, actually past couple days. We've just kind of wondered who was the one that actually did all of this, who was one of the people that actually was sought for those redacted names and all of that. So Susan Rice is basically the first name that we've actually heard pop up about this. And sadly, she didn't actually even deny it at this point. We've seen that she basically just said that because what she did wasn't specifically illegal, that she was fine with it and that she never denied actually doing it. She said that her actions were not uncommon and that they were necessary to do her job. She basically said that she didn't do it as a political matter, and that's what she thinks is going to get her out of this entire issue. And that's one of the big questions that is actually being asked now. It's gone from actually whether Susan Rice actually was a part of this, even though a couple weeks ago she said she had no idea about any of this, to now her saying that she could have done it and that it wasn't an actual political movement that she did. But let's actually look into this, folks. Susan Rice was a political appointee. Susan Rice was under direct control of President Obama. Everything she did on her post as National Security Advisor was from the orders of Barack Obama. She got her orders from Obama himself. And so anything that she got in any of these matters had to come from Obama. And we can guarantee that after losing the election, that we all know that Obama and the Democrats themselves didn't expect to lose, he was completely out of his mind and going crazy trying to still discredit Trump's victory. We saw the entire Democratic Party trying to do that, and that's how this entire Russia issue even got brought up in the first place. They were very angry, and they acted, and they continue to act out of spite. And we can see them actually doing things like blocking different votes, blocking different nominations, saying that they're going to filibuster Neil Gorsuch. We see all of these different things that they do out of spite of losing the election. There is no doubt in my mind that Susan Rice did this as a political action. There is no doubt in my mind that she did this to try to discredit the President of the United States. And this is something that sadly has been accepted as normal from the liberal media. We see shows on CNN and MSNBC saying that this entire Susan Rice story is completely false, that there's no evidence of it whatsoever, and that they can't report it because of that. One CNN host even going as far to say that they will not show it because it is fake news, and that anyone who actually believes it is crazy. That's actually what a host of the media said. So we see the liberal media constantly coming out with these unknown sources for different evidence that Trump colluded with the Russians. We see it time after time coming out on CNN or MSNBC. But when it's something that they don't necessarily have the source on for something that's bad about the left, they don't report on it. Because, we don't have a source for it. We can't report that. Even though for the past 6 months, they've been reporting stuff on Donald Trump that has no real source. For the past 6 months, they've been reporting stuff that is completely made up on Donald Trump. So it's not like they actually do report everything that only has a source. They constantly report all of these different things that don't have sources, that are kind of just made up and there's no real evidence for it, such as Trump having collusion with Russia, such as Trump not paying any taxes, and we saw that blow up in their faces. The liberal media has gotten so bad that when they blatantly lie to the American people, it is accepted as normal. And now they're helping Susan Rice and the Democrats get away with something that could potentially be treason. And that's a big deal. That is a huge deal. They're trying to help Susan Rice get out of this issue that she put herself in, that Obama put her in, that definitely did happen. There's no doubt in my mind that Susan Rice did this. She has been involved in many different scandals, and she was one of the biggest proponents of lying about what happened in Benghazi. It was Susan Rice that went around the media after the Benghazi attacks saying that this was all due to a YouTube video. That was her that went out and did that. She is not above lying to the American people. She's not above twisting anything to politically benefit her. She obviously politically acted and got these redacted names for a certain reason, got this redacted information. Because she had political orders from President Obama to do this. There's no other reason why she would ever do this. There's no reason whatsoever. And I do believe, just as many senators and representatives have already called for, that Susan Rice has to be issued a subpoena to appear before the House or even the Senate investigations. She has to be issued a subpoena so that she can actually answer questions on this. I've seen many people saying that she ought to do that and that she ought to go in front of those committees, and that is something that has to happen. We've seen so many times where Democrats do go in front of these committees. They just don't give any information, and that's what's happening currently. So we do need answers. We need another person that we know was involved in this, and that's Susan Rice. We know she was involved with this at this point. We need to get answers, and hopefully she'll finally tell the truth. When she's under oath, hopefully she'll actually tell the truth about this, because this is a huge issue, and this is something that has to be solved. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. This issue and the allegations behind this issue, these are all something that are horrible and shouldn't have ever happened. A previous administration allegedly spying on the incoming president. This is a big deal, and this has to be ended sooner rather than later. These intelligence communities not only need to question Susan Rice, they also need to finally get help from the intelligence community. We have seen that so many Obama appointees within these different agencies have continued to try to stall and continue to try to ruin the Trump presidency. And this is something that I don't understand about the Democrats. Yeah, I get it. You lost the election, but now they are actively rooting for the failure of this presidency. They're rooting for the failure of their own country. They're rooting for the failure of their own government. You don't do that. You don't root for the failure of your country, even when President Obama was president. No one that's Republican was hoping that he was a complete failure. No one was hoping that he ruined our country. While he did all those things on his own, and we didn't root for it. Because we want our country to prosper. We want it to increase its economic benefits, its gains. We want our safety to increase, the terrorism levels to go down. We don't want to put our president and our government and our leadership at risk, which is what is coming out of all of these different scandals and allegations that are being thrown around currently. Our country is being put at risk. Our president is being put at risk. This presidency as a whole, the credibility of it, is being put at risk because of political differences. Because of petty differences of the left. Because they can't get over the fact that they lost the election. And I talk about this week after week on this show. And you would think at some point they would finally stop being so petty. You would think at some point they would finally figure out the fact that they lost fair and square. They've been losing elections constantly since Obama took office. They lost the House, they lost the Senate, and now they lost the presidency. This is something that they had to have seen coming. This is something that isn't a surprise if you actually look at polls, if you actually look at what the American people wanted. So taking so many months like they have, 6 months basically, to get over the fact that they lost this, and they're still not over it. They're going to continue to do this for a while now. I can see that now. That's just sad, and that is childish, that is immature. And the fact that they would ever even do stuff like these allegations say, like they would, whether it was incidentally or not, that is spying on an incoming president and his associates. The fact that they would do that is horrible, and it should have never even become an issue in the first place. They should have thought better than to do such a thing. They should have thought better than to spy on the incoming president because they disagree with him, because they want to find something to discredit him, to discredit our nation. It's a sad world that we're living in when our own country is trying to discredit itself. That's not how a country ought to work. And this presidency is going to be long and hard if we don't have the Democrats stop being so petty and stop trying to stall and stop trying to ruin our own country. Because that's essentially what they're trying to do right now. That's essentially what they have been doing for the past 6 months. And it's got to stop, folks, sooner rather than later. I'm going to take one quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is The Wise Conservative Show. Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from The Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. And every time that these universities take up this new social change that they're trying to promote, every time they take that up, they are taking away from that education instead. Because now they're focusing on these social changes instead of learning like they should be.
Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, the Jason Veely Program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to prageru.com for all of their latest content. That's Prager, the letter U.com. PragerU.com.
Have you ever wanted to stand up to your liberal professor? Have you ever wanted to help expand the conservative movement? Well, it sounds like you would be a perfect fit for Youth Revolt. Youth Revolt is a team of dedicated young conservatives fighting liberal indoctrination within our school system. If you're interested in being a part of this team by being a columnist or even hosting your own radio show, go ahead and click the Join Now tab at the top of youthrevolt.org. You'll be asked to answer a few questions, and a Youth Revolt team member will respond to you quickly. Be a part of something bigger than you. Be a part of Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
My friends, I'm going to be blunt with you. There are a lot of frauds out there today. People who claim to be conservatives and yet, in one way or another, believe that more government is the solution to our problems. That's not what conservatism is about, and even more than that, that's not what our Constitution is about. I'm Jason Veely, a recent college grad who has the guts to say what needs to be said without pulling any punches. On my radio show, you can expect 100% pure conservatism every single weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Join me as we discuss history, liberty, and conservative philosophy in a style that is just as entertaining as it is educational. Who says we can't have fun tearing down the liberal establishment? Tune in to the Jason Veely Program live every weeknight at 7 o'clock on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate!
Love trumping hate involves a lot more assault and arson than I expected. The Wise Conservative Show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I am your host, Connor Wise. And now I've actually covered a bunch of different reports on homegrown terrorism throughout America. Probably 3 or 4 different reports on it that have come out within the past year. and all of them basically say the same thing, but is basically getting more and more worrying. They're saying now that cases of homegrown extremism, Islamist extremism in the U.S. is continuing to rise, and now this is according to the House Homeland Security's latest terror threat snapshot. The committee that is led by Chairman Michael McCaul, who's a Republican from Texas, released this monthly report just today, and it noted that all of the 204 homegrown jihadist cases in the U.S. since 9/11, that all of those, there was 204 since 9/11. 36 of those attacks, though, occurred just within the last 12 months, which is a pretty high number. McCall said that we must remain clear-eyed about the threats we face. The report cited charges against Azam Mohammed Rahim, who was charged in March with making false statements regarding his support for ISIS and terrorist activities. Elvis Reza Pajic, a 26-year-old who was arrested for attempting to provide material support and resources to ISIS and allegedly trying to enter Syria to join the Islamic State on the Nusra front on 2 different occasions. It reports the ISIS attacks on Brussels last year, the attack on Westminster Bridge just last month, a couple weeks ago. McCall said, 1 year after the heinous act in Brussels, ISIS continues to leverage the power of lone wolves targeting the West, most recently at the heart of the British government. The report also cites information from former Michael Morell, who was the former deputy director of the CIA, who said that there is also an expected growing threat to U.S. airports from both ISIS and al-Qaeda. Morell urged the Transportation Security Administration, or the TSA, to remain alert, calling airports the center of the target zone. Quote, we must intensify our efforts to deny these terrorist safe havens abroad while more aggressively countering jihadist radicalization efforts here in the United States. Islamic terror has been franchised to followers not only in strongholds like Iraq and Syria, but in all corners of the world, and they are using everything from sophisticated explosives to their own vehicles to kill innocent people. The committee report noted the meeting between President Trump and the Iraqi Prime Minister, during which the leaders stated their confidence that ISIS will be defeated, and they pledged their pursuit of a continued partnership to fight terrorism. So the U.S. military now is actually set to deploy 275 fighters to support American troops aiding the Iraqi army's fight against ISIS in Mosul. And so I guess we're going to see how this actually changes within a month. So the next report is scheduled and expected for 1 month from now. But every month that these comes out, I do believe I've read a couple of these monthly reports to you guys. But each time it does say that terrorism is still on the rise. And we can definitely see that. And we can see that ISIS is still a prominent threat to our nation because we really didn't take any action against them for the past 6 years. For the past 6 years, we haven't done anything, 5 or 6 years. And so now they have prospered. Now they have grown. Now they have gained so much strength that they have literally set up their own government within the Middle East. They are collecting taxes from their own people. They are basically trying to set up their own country within the Middle East, and this is because we haven't taken action soon enough. It's going to be a much harder fight now than it would have been when they were created if Obama had actually acted. If he had acted way back at their creation, then this wouldn't be an issue whatsoever. But he let them grow. He let them prosper. These are all side effects from the previous administration, who was weak on terrorism, who had no foreign policy. He had a failed foreign policy. The Obama administration has left so many negative side effects for America, and it's still affecting us to this day. We have seen time after time where his failed policies have led to horrible realities within this world. And we have seen how even in Syria, which I will talk about later, but even in Syria, he drew that red line for the Assad regime and then did nothing about it. The Obama administration had no foreign policy, and now because of that, ISIS has grown, ISIS has prospered, ISIS is now growing their threat within our own country. Speaking of, now pro-ISIS hackers have released another kill list. They've done this a few times before. This one has 8,786 targets within the US and the UK combined. This ISIS-linked group of hackers has released this list. It has those names and addresses, and it calls for lone wolf attacks on the targets. This was in a video that they posted online. These hackers are known as the United Cyber Caliphate, or the UCC, and it ordered those watching to, quote, kill them wherever you find them. It was in a posting Sunday night on a private messaging app called Telegram, and the group first warned that a release of the names was imminent. And then 10 minutes after that actual warning, the hackers posted the actual list, which includes names of seemingly random individuals from primarily the US and the UK, and this is according to the terror monitor called Site. Quote, more than 7,000 of the names were from the US, from a source from that cyber department at Site. Said that just today. The video was just under 6 minutes, and it began with a warning for the United States, saying, we have a message to the people of the US, and most importantly, your President Trump. Know that we continue to wage war against you. Know that your counterattacks only make us stronger. The UCC will start a new step in this war against you. So now Site is currently working to determine the primary source of this list, which includes individual phone numbers and emails. A source at Site said, quote, we're trying to determine where the list came from and also identify a common theme among the individuals. Terror analysts are saying that it's not yet determined how serious the threat actually is to the U.S. and to these individuals that were actually placed on the list. Quote, this group has released several kill lists in the past, and so far there's been no confirmed incident of someone on the list being directly targeted or attacked. On March 16th, the UCC also released a video saying that its leader, Osed Aga, had been killed in a U.S. airstrike, and that's when they actually threatened retaliation for his death. And so they are definitely mad that their leader was killed in that airstrike. And I feel like some lone wolf attacks definitely are pretty imminent. We do see that rise in terrorism coming. We see it continuing to increase, especially these lone wolf attacks. Just like that previous report from Congress that I read to you guys. This is definitely something that is increasing the amount of terrorism within this nation. And so we do see that this kill list could be much more potentially harmful now than it was in the past, as that terrorism rate increases exponentially as time goes on. And we've already seen the Trump administration laying out plans to actually take the fight to ISIS. We've seen that they've actually introduced a plan to create basically safe zones within Syria, and that basically works on two issues within the region. In northern Syria, where this plan is actually going to be implemented, and they've already started sending troops over there, they're going to combat ISIS and take over these certain areas within the country of Syria and basically keep them occupied so that we can keep the citizens of Syria in those areas safely. So this combats not only the ISIS problem, but also the refugee problem that is plaguing the entire world currently. So Donald Trump's administration is already working on this. We know that the previous administration definitely didn't care whatsoever what went on. Basically, their biggest foreign policy in terms of terrorism was training Iraqi soldiers instead of actually sending our own troops. Of course, Obama famously said that he wasn't going to put boots on the ground within the Middle East. Well, now that is all changing, and we actually do have a chance to get rid of this rampant terrorism that is plaguing these areas. So we can see that it is definitely going to be a much better outcome at the end of all of this. And speaking of Syria now, we all know that those chemical weapon strike just happened in Syria a day or two ago. And now President Trump has condemned the deadly chemical weapon strike in Syria, basically in the strongest terms that he's ever used against the Assad regime, saying the attack, which he blames on the Assad regime, cannot be tolerated. And this was just minutes after his UN envoys hinted at the possibility of unilateral action against the Assad regime. He said this while speaking at a joint press conference in the Rose Garden with Jordan's visiting King Abdullah II, and he called the attack, quote, horrific. He condemned the attack against, quote, innocent people, including women, small children, and even beautiful little babies, and said their deaths was an affront to humanity. These heinous actions by the Assad regime cannot be tolerated. The United States stands with our allies across the globe to condemn this horrific attack. Trump declined to specify what exactly he might do in response, but did indicate that his past resistance to intervention in the region could be softening. And this is just days after reports that the administration was shifting U.S. focus away from trying to push Assad from power. And this is a whole huge issue that has kind of plagued the region for many years. Syria has been in a civil war for almost a decade now. Of course, the Assad regime has used chemical weapons time after time against its own citizens and the rebel groups in this civil war. President Obama did take a stance in this civil war. He said he drew that red line, if you don't remember. He drew a red line saying that if Assad used chemical weapons one more time, that the U.S. would take action. And Assad used chemical weapons another time during Obama's presidency, and Obama didn't take action. And he just continued to allow all these horrific tragedies to continue, these human rights violations to continue, even though he said that the U.S. would be strong on this, and he was adamant about it. If you've actually seen that speech, he was very adamant about the fact that the U.S. was going to act. And this is all just side effects of Obama drawing that line, but then not enforcing it. Because now the Assad regime thinks that they are above the U.S. military as well. And that's a dangerous thought to actually have, as we do have the strongest military in the world. Of course, we have backed the rebels within the Civil War since just about the beginning. And again, the Civil War is very confusing. The fact that we don't necessarily know who the rebels are, but we just know that they're not using chemical weapons, so they're slightly less awful than the Assad regime. And no matter what happens in the Civil War, it's going to have a bad outcome, folks. But using chemical weapons is something that is against the UN Council's Human Rights Declaration of Human Rights. It's something that time after time, the entire world, basically, all of the civilized countries have spoken out against. And now this is actually an issue that is kind of contradicting everything that the left has said about Donald Trump to this point. This is basically causing him to go against the Russian regime, the Putin regime, that all the people on the left say that he's all cozy with. We can see that Trump definitely is saying that this is changing his view on not only Assad and Syria in general, but also on Putin and his support of Assad. He said that this attack definitely crossed a lot of lines for me. That crosses many, many lines beyond a red line. And he's, of course, referencing that red line that President Barack Obama drew. Later in the day, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said that, quote, "There's no doubt in our mind that the Syrian regime under the leadership of Bashar al-Assad is responsible for this horrific attack." He also said that Russia, quote, "needs to think carefully about its continued support for the Assad regime." Abdul King Abdullah, who was standing beside Trump after meetings at the White House, said that the threshold of inhumanity and savagery is being crossed every day, and that he fully supports President Trump on this issue against Assad in the civil war. So this was a pretty big meeting. Trump has met with the Jordanian king before, but this was the first time at the actual White House, and it came at a very prominent time full of issues in the Middle East, of course, with Syria just launching that attack. And you guys know that I do have a bunch of different news sources that I look up for this show, and I got a notification from RT News, which is Russian Times, and this news source is actually controlled by the Russian government, but I have the app for it, just so you can get a different perspective on things. And after, all of the normal news agencies sent out their notifications of this attack happening, saying that it is likely the Assad regime that launched chemical weapons, which they have time after time in the past, you could see kind of the Russian government floundering to save themselves on this issue. They sent out a notification from RT saying that they believed that it was actually the rebels that had a warehouse full of chemical weapons. So definitely Russia is floundering on this issue. This is one that most countries, basically, Iran and Russia are basically the only countries that back Assad. And that's it. And we've already seen countless numbers of our allies say that Assad is horrible, that he's evil, he's violating these human rights. And Donald Trump himself said just after the attack that he put all of the moral blame on Russia and Iran for this attack happening, because they are the two countries that have allowed Assad to actually stay in power and are actually helping him out in this war. It's definitely a confusing situation over in that region. If you haven't actually looked into it, I urge you to, because it's definitely a very prominent issue, and it affects many different Middle Eastern conflicts. It affects many different issues across the entire globe in terms of ISIS, in terms of refugees, all of these different areas it definitely affects. So I do urge you to look into it more if you haven't. Stay educated yourself on this issue. But anyway, yeah, this definitely was just a huge kind of turning point in something, because we haven't really seen Donald Trump talk out against Russia too much yet, and this is basically a turning point. He is saying that this just crosses the line, that he cannot support anyone who supports the Assad regime. So we'll have to see how this goes from here, and we'll have to see if he actually enforces that red line finally against the Assad regime. But I'm going to take one last quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show. Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. How haven't all of these protesters realized that they are the exact reason why Donald Trump was elected in the first place? How haven't they realized that them being crybabies about every single thing in life is exactly why the American people rose up and voted for Donald Trump? They are the whole reason that they have all this misery currently.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Get out of here, you idiot. Sorry about that, folks. Jason Veely here, host of the Jason Veely program. I'm a 22-year-old conservative who is fired up and ticked off at the direction the progressive left have taken this country. Join me every weeknight at 7 o'clock as we promote liberty, advance conservative principle, and work to restore the Constitution of the United States. I can get loud and I can get passionate. How can we afford not to when so much is on the line? Tune in to the Jason Veely program, live every weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. And every time that these universities take up this new social change that they're trying to promote, every time they take that up, they are taking away from that education instead. because now they're focusing on these social changes instead of learning like they should be.
Calling all young conservatives. Have you ever wanted to write for an online publication? What about host your own conservative radio program? Now you can, thanks to youthrevolt.org. Youth Revolt is a conservative media network for young people, the goal of which is to educate our fellow Americans and also to expose the left-wing indoctrination that goes on in classrooms across the country. Become part of a team that is dedicated to taking the country back, one radio program or opinion column at a time. If you're interested, go to youthrevolt.org and click on Join Us on the top of the page. Fill out our brief questionnaire, and one of our representatives will be in touch with you in no time at all. The time to reclaim our future is now. Be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and join the movement today. Youth Revolt. Speak without fear. Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, the Jason Veely Program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to prageru.com for all of their latest content. That's Prager, the letter U.com. prageru.com.
Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate!
Love trumping hate involves a lot more assault and arson than I expected. The Wise Conservative Show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I am your host, Connor Wise. And now this is something that we've basically already known, but now a new poll is finding, a Gallup poll, that was released Monday, it's finding that 67% of Democrats say they are extremely or very proud, to be an American. And now this number was taken through March. It's down 11 points, though, from last year, and it's the lowest number the Gallup poll has ever measured any group saying that they are proud to be American. The previous low was reported for Democrats was 74% in January of 2007, and this was shortly after then President George W. Bush announced the Iraq surge. In the same poll that just came out on Monday, 92% of Republicans and 73% of independents said that they were extremely or very proud to be an American, and less than 10%, and it also found that less than 10% of Democrats have a good approval rating of Donald Trump. So this is definitely connected to Donald Trump. They are finding from this information. Overall, 75% of Americans said that they were extremely or very proud of being an American. This is across party lines now, but this is down from 81% a year ago. While the number saying that they were only a little or not at all proud jumped slightly from 6% to 9% this year. And this poll did note that the Republican pride tends to remain more stable, while Democrats tend to sway more by who is president and of America's standing on the foreign stage. And this is something that we really already knew. I mean, it didn't necessarily need a poll to prove it. We already knew that the Democrats weren't as proud of this nation. Think back to actual presidents. Have you ever seen President Obama or former President Obama ever kiss the American flag, ever even salute the American flag? Because I don't remember one time when he did. I remember pictures of him not even putting his hand over his heart during the national anthem or anything like that, not sing along to it ever. Never ever looking proud to be an American. And of course, his wife, Michelle Obama, said that she was proud for the first time to be an American when Hillary Clinton was nominated to be the Democratic nominee for president. She said that was the first time she was ever proud to be an American, and it's definitely late into her life. We have seen time after time the Democrats within this country, or at least the new Democrats within this country, just do not care and do not love this nation, and it definitely shows through their policies. I mean, but if we do go back to older Democrats, people such as JFK, they cared about this country. They cared about what this country stood for. They cared about our freedoms, our values. JFK was definitely one of the better Democrats, if not the best Democrat that was ever president. But then we see that Democrats kind of just fell off. We don't see any of them ever saying that they love this country anymore. We don't see any of them actually protecting the values that made our country what it is. They constantly try to change this nation so that it's like those in Europe. They constantly try to change our values as Americans to something that they think is better, something that they think will fit their world better. We see that the Democrats do definitely sway and change in this rating of whether they love or they're proud to be an American for a very good reason. Because when they say that they're proud to be an American, they don't mean it. When they say they're proud to be an American, they're just saying that they agree with the current president. That is what's happening here. And it is exactly why their numbers are down, because they don't like Donald Trump. These Democrats aren't proud to be American. They're not patriotic. They're conceited. If it's not their party in control, they don't think our nation is good enough. Meanwhile, us Republicans, we know that this country is great. We know while there are some problems, we live in the greatest country on this earth. And it doesn't matter whether it's Barack Obama as president, whether it's Hillary Clinton as president, or whether it's our own Donald Trump or Ronald Reagan. We will love this nation because we actually know the values that it stands for. And if you actually look at the ideologies, it really makes sense, folks. Republicans and conservatives in general stand for those same values that our founding fathers fought for liberties, for freedoms, for rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution. But the left doesn't stand up for those same values. The left doesn't stand up for your right to own a firearm. The left doesn't stand up for your right to have privacy against government intrusion. They want a larger, more overbearing government that intrudes into your lives in every aspect. They don't stand for any of the values that our founding fathers stood for, so it is no wonder why these polls constantly find that the Democrats don't care about our country, that the Democrats don't say that they are proud to be Americans. It is sad when we have half of our nation that is so conceited and self-centered and living in their own reality that they can't realize that their ideology is not based on the real world, that they don't actually care about this nation. They just care about whether their party is in control so that they can gain more power. Because that's essentially what it is, folks, and that's why their numbers fluctuate like that. And that is why it is down now, because they definitely hate Donald Trump, folks. We have seen that from the protests, from the stalling, from the filibustering. They hate Donald Trump and his administration. They hate Republicans. They hate conservatives in general. And they don't care about this nation, folks. They just care about power. They just care about expanding government, getting free handouts. Not working, but getting stuff in return. That is a part of the liberal ideology. And it doesn't make sense, folks, why anyone would ever want that. Why anyone would ever want to urge everyone to go on to government assistance instead of actually working for what they want in life. Trying to legislate people into prosperity is not what this nation was founded upon. It is not what this nation will continue to do, and that's what the Democrats try to do. That's the socialistic ideals that many on the left hold, and that they even had someone run on as president or run for president on those socialistic ideals. Anyone who has values like that will never love a country that values freedom as much as America does, that values small government as much as our nation does. And so I am sad when I see this poll, definitely. I am sad that the left doesn't say that they're proud to be Americans. But it doesn't surprise me one bit at all, folks, because they have never proven that they love this country in recent history. Not since the 60s have they actually proven that. And so this poll, it just reaffirms everything that we already knew from the previous administration and the Democratic Party as a whole. All right, that's all for today's episode of The Wise Conservative Show. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. My name has been Connor Wise. You can find me on youthrevolt.org. Go ahead and look up Youth Revolt on Facebook.com. Find me on Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative. On Instagram at @the_wise_conservative. I'd like to once again thank you for tuning in, and as always, God bless.